Welcome to SVM Hoopin. I'm Dan Waisner alongside Christopher Hireman, and this week we are talking about 1A, 2A boys basketball regionals. The pairings were released last Friday. We have teams in 5 different regionals across those 2 classes. In 2A, probably the one with the most local flavor would be the West Carroll Regional, with the top seed being Newman, second seed being Riverdale. It seems to me like those are the 2 cream of the crop in that class, most likely to play in a championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. That championship game on that Friday at 7:30, and the collision course logically looks like Newman versus Riverdale. The top 2 seeds, Newman the top seed, Riverdale the number 2. West Carroll obviously still reloading, going through some growing pains this season, so I see Riverdale taking care of them. And why I like is should those teams meet in the championship, the reason I like Newman, not just because of the support of more tires, wink wink, but I like the fact that Newman is well coached, and when they face a guy like Jared Richmond, obviously the Rams' top gun, I think they'll figure out a way to take him out of the mix and make other Rams beat him. So I like the comments should they run into each other, but Fulton on the boys and girls side, you've seen them spring some upsets this season, so you can't count your chickens before they've hatched, so to speak.
Well, the Newman bunch is battle tested. Pretty much that whole group of starters were around for last year's run to the Super Sectional.
Right.
Not all of them were starters, but almost all of them got minutes. So they have that experience of winning big games, and they'll get in that regional title game, and I don't think it'll phase them in terms of pressure and that kind of stuff. I think they'll move on to that Byron Sectional, where they'll meet the winner of the Bureau Valley Regional, which our only local team there is Bureau Valley. They're a 3 seed, and they have 2 pretty good teams up above them. It'll make it tough for the Storm to get through there in Seneca and St. Bede.
Yeah, no doubt. The Storm have some signature victories this season, but before we hopped on camera, you revealed that you like a non-number 1 seed in this particular regional. Seneca's been making their hay in the Interstate 8th, and they've played really well this season. I believe they're 20-3 overall to this point and undefeated in conference, but they're going to have their hands full the same way that Bureau Valley will with St. Bede. And St. Bede, Joe Piska, we hope that we're pronouncing that right. He looks like a bit of a double-double machine night in, night out. He can go out and get you 15 and 12, and that's going to be really tough for BV to account for, especially since a lot of their talent is at the guard position. Yeah. So they're going to be challenged, and St. Bede and Seneca would be a heck of a finale if it comes down to that.
Right. I mean, Pisgah's 6'7", and I don't think there's either of those teams have a guy that can really shut him down.
Right.
Bureau Valley's young, and they've got kids that this is really their second season on varsity, and like New Hoffman, who's a sophomore, but they're still young. They're still maturing. They're still growing. In another year or 2, I think Bureau Valley will be the team that's probably the top seed in a regional like this, and being the team people are predicting to go on to the regional.
Yep, you can't.
Or the sectional, I should say.
You can't coach height, especially in like a 2-week span. They're not getting any taller between now and then.
The other 2A regional would be in Oregon. The Hawks are the only local team out of that one. They meet up with Byron, which will be a tough test in that first game on a Wednesday, the February 20th.
Right.
And if they get by that, most likely they're going to run into Winnebago, who we've seen just kind of roll everybody except Rock Falls, who had a chance to hand the Indians their first loss on Saturday, but a late shot was able to get Winnebago through that.
So we've seen that Winnebago is not invincible. When we talk about the Hawks, kind of like us being back in our old shooting ground today, the Hawks will be on their home court, so they've got that going for them. They also took Bago to overtime in a 78-72 loss way back on January 5th. Yeah, it was just a month ago, but it feels like it was forever ago, because then you go back to last Thursday and you see they lost 72-34 to the Indians. So I think very markedly different Hawks team this time around. I really wanted to make this my bold prediction. I'm a bit of an Oregon Hawks apologist. I saw Maury go off for that huge game against the Francis over at Newman, and I like Oregon's team. I just fear that they, you want to be playing your best ball at this time of the season. Unfortunately, I think they might be playing some of their worst ball at this time of the season. So are they capable of beating Winnebago on any given day? Absolutely. But I do like the Indians to move on.
Yeah, it does seem like Oregon maybe peaked that first month or so of the season.
Yeah.
And they've sort of treaded water the rest of the way. I mean, they've had good games and bad games, but they haven't really been able to put it together. And I don't know if that's a matter of teams adjusting in terms of shutting down Maury or letting Maury have his and then just taking away everybody else.
Exactly.
Most likely that's what you got. You got a month worth of tape, and teams just started to kind of adjust to what Oregon does best.
Sure. So you like Bago, obviously.
Yeah, I like Bago. I like St. Bede, and I like Newman in those 2A regionals.
All right.
In 1A, we have two local teams hosting regionals in Erie and Polo. Both of them are just chock full of local teams. Looking at Erie first, the top seed is Paw Paw, which seems strange. They're a really small school.
Yeah.
But from everything I've been able to see, they also look like they're a really good team.
Yeah, the timing is right for them. You've seen them win some big games, and you've seen them give some really, really good teams a test. Talking about that Newman tournament again, they ran into DeSales in that tournament and nearly knocked them off. So yeah, Paw Paw's the real deal, and a team like that, knowing that their window is always going to be small. So that's going to be a team that's going to go in hungry and knowing that they got to get it done right now. Trying to earn the opportunity to have a shot at them. You look at the 4-5 matchup between Prophetstown and Amboy. And, Pete Town's a team that, they're kind of like, you think about the San Diego Chargers for years and years, where it's like, come on, Pete Town, we've seen what you're capable of, and we're waiting for them to get back over the hump. And, they had a 16-0 lead on Amboy the last time they got together and just had to hold off the Clippers. So, if nothing else, from a local standpoint, I think that game is going to be worth the price of admission alone.
Well, and I think Erie's still capable of making a run here, but like Oregon, they seem like they've just struggled down the stretch a little bit here. They just got walloped by Newman on Saturday, which really surprised me. I thought that'd be a good game. I thought Newman would win it, but I thought it'd be within 10 points, depending on free throws or whatever got hit at the end. Instead, it ended up being a 25-point game. The thing Erie does have is they've got a scorer in Jacob Johnston, and they've got some nice pieces around him. It's just a matter if they can put it together and put together a good effort for that week to get through that regional and get past they'll play Indian Creek or Lemoyne, Ohio, probably Indian Creek in that first game.
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about the Timberwolves, so we'll see how that goes.
Unfortunately, I hate to boil it down to this, but it all comes down to Jacob Johnston's back. As you mentioned, he's their go-to scorer. Maybe his back hurts because he's been carrying them a little bit this season, but he was limited against Newman on Saturday. And if Jacob Johnston's back isn't 100%, I think they have a certain shelf life.
I mean, my bold prediction is I wouldn't be surprised to see Paw Paw get knocked off here, just because there are some nice teams, some good basketball conferences there. I just have a hard time picking out which one it'll be. I think it's just a matter. I just think it may be just one team getting hot. Maybe it's Indian Creek. I don't know them that well, but I have a feeling maybe Paw Paw will get knocked out here, but I'm not sure which team it'll be.
All right.
I guess that's not really a bold prediction.
Oh, I'll take it. You're taking the field against the number one seed.
Yeah.
It's boldish.
And then you turn to the Polo Regional, and I look at this as a two-team race.
Absolutely, and a good one.
And a very good one. I think it would produce a very good a final. Although you can't sleep on Forreston, who's also a pretty solid team. But I like Polo and Eastland in that championship game. And it'll be very interesting how that turns out. Polo gave Yakima a pretty good game on Saturday. Eastland, like we've said, it's really been a while since they've been tested. Some of the tournaments early in the season, they played, I think they played Winnebago. They played a couple other 2A teams.
Yep.
But since then, they've kind of just rolled through their conference. Makes you wonder what, the strength of that conference is this year.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. I mean, Polo on the other hand, sort of has a reputation of going into the postseason and laying eggs. Last year, they had a pretty solid team, it seemed like.
Right.
And then they lost to a Milledgeville team that, was well under 500 in the first game. So it's very interesting to see how that one will turn out.
Well, the good news for Eastland, we were all a bit stunned as perhaps the Cougars were, that they got knocked off by Forreston right off the bat on the regional level last year. I believe it was on the regional level. Well, they're in opposite ends of the bracket this time, so there's no need to have jitters going against the Cardinals this time around. Like you said, Eastland's been rolling teams that on paper should be giving them their best tests within the conference. I see them running into Polo. I think Polo has some of those things that I mentioned you can't coach, like A.J. Dolemeyer isn't going to get any smaller between now and the postseason. And they've got a number of guys who can fill the basket. So I like Polo going against Eastland, and All logical indicators point out that the Cougars win this regional, but because of that very reason, I'm going to defy logic. In my bold prediction, I actually like the Polo Marcos to find a way to spring an upset of the Cougars.
Oh, wow.
Boom.
Well, I like Eastland to win it. The one thing I'll find interesting is in close games who gets the ball for Eastland. I think that's maybe what they ran into last year against Forest, and you got into a big game. You know, do you give it to Hartman? Do you give it to Shaner? Who takes those big shots at the end of games that are close? Like we said, they just haven't been challenged to see who that is. I mean, those guys have put up good numbers, but you just never know until you get into the postseason who's got that, ice in their veins, who's going to hit those shots and, move on. That's really generally the difference in those championship games is that one player who, for whatever reason, hits the big shots. Last year, Mike Lee was the guy in the area that just kept hitting big shots whenever Newman needed it. So, that'll be the interesting to see. So
they've got guys who are capable of doing that. Like I said, all logic points to Eastland, but I gotta go against the grain a little bit at some point. I like Coach Messer. I like what Polo's got going on. I like the high intensity pressure that, unfortunately, again against logic, I think that Eastland will do a nice job handling that pressure. I just got a hunch. That's all.
Well, the other thing to mention is the winners of these two regionals will play each other in the sectional semifinal. I like that Polo regional better than I like the Erie regional.
Absolutely.
So I think the winner of that Polo regional ends up in the sectional final, and I haven't looked that far ahead to see who they'd run into there, but that's how I see it. I think the Polo regional is just a little bit stronger than the Erie regional. That team should be in a sectional championship game and have that chance to go to a super sectional.
At that point, we will look ahead, and that's a whole nother video.
Yep. Well, I think that's it for this week. We'll see you at the games.